USB-C changed everything. Before it, every device had its own cable. Now, one port ruled them all. And that's exactly what MCP does for AI tools. It standardizes the way AI models get context. So MCP is like a USB-C port for your AI IDE, a universal way to plug in the right context no matter what tools you're using. And in this video, I'll show you exactly what it is, how it works, and how you can use it with CURSOR or WINDSURF to level up your AI IDE. So stick around to the end of this video for a list of MCP tools you can use to plug in into your current AI workflow. So a couple months ago, Anthropic announced MCP. And this is a new standard for connecting AI assistant to the system where data lives. So what does that mean? So do you remember even like what it was like before USB? Before USB, you had to have a cable for every single external device you wanted to connect to your computer. If you had like a monitor, you would need a specific cable for it. If you had a video game controller, you would need a specific cable for it. It was just kind of a big mess. But then suddenly USB came around, USB-C, and it made it so easy to connect any single tools to the same exact port. So that just made things a lot easier. So this is the architecture of MCP. And when I first saw that, I was like, that might not be really accessible to everyone. So I made my own version of it. But first of all, let me show you this one that I found from WINDSURF themselves when they wanted to explain to people how MCP works. So as you can see over here, the host with MCP client right here. So we have WINDSURF. In the middle, we have different type of MCP server that you can use. And on the right over here, you have the different external service that you can connect it to. So how does that all work together? Essentially, you have the MCP clients, and then inside of it, you have the host. So the host can be like CURSOR or WINDSURF or any application, any clients that is utilizing the MCP server. And then in the middle over here, you have the MCP server, which is essentially exposing capabilities from a third-party external service. So if you have Supabase, for example, and you want to allow the client to be able to pull a list of your table from your Supabase database, then you will use the server and list all the capabilities that you want to expose and allow the client to have access to that by making requests. So this is pretty much how it works. So you have the client, the server, and the external service. And similarly over here, you have WINDSURF, you have the MCP server in the middle, and you have the external service on the right. If you are an MCP developer, there's two types of things you can build. You can either build for the server or you can build for the client. So if you are building for the client, you'll be adding functionalities to tool like an AI IDE or an LLM to have the ability to use an MCP server. And if you're building server, you're essentially adding more capabilities to the client. So you can think about MCP like giving tools, skills, or capability to your AI. Okay, so there are two types of MCP server architecture. So the transport type is essentially how those messages from the server and the client are exchanged. So on the left-hand side, you have SSE, which is server send events. And on the right-hand side, you have STDIO, which is standard input and output, which also stand for commands in some of the different IDE that you might use. And the reason for that is that SSE is more of a stream-based communication. So it's a continuous stream of information. So the connection between the client and the server are continuous, and it goes in a unidirectional way. So the client can send messages to the server, but not the other way around. But with STDIO or commands, it's more bidirectional. So the client can send messages to the server and the server can send messages to the client. And this is more of a process-based approach where you have discrete chunk of content being passed on from one end to the other. So that's the key differences between the two. And this is important because when you're going to choose what MCP server to use, sometimes you're going to be asked to select the transport type. And if you're using CURSOR, you actually have access to both options because currently CURSOR supports server using both SSE and STDIO transport type. If you open CURSOR and add your MCP server, you're going to select the type over here, and you're going to select SSE if you want SSE, and similarly, you're going to select command. And you can see over here, if you're using SSE, it's asking you to provide a URL or endpoint, and if you're using a command, it's going to ask you to select to pass a command. And right now, WINDSURF does not currently support SSE, but they only support stdio. And the way you're going to pass configuration for your MCP server with WindSurf is a bit different. You're going to actually pass a JSON hash to configure it. I'm going to show you quickly what it looks like when you're looking at the actual app. So if you head over here, you'll notice that over here in the chat box, there's a little icon right here called MCP. So if you click over this icon and you click configure, this screen over here is going to appear. And this is an MCP config.json. And they'll show you some example of how you can configure it. So they'll give you something like this that you take and you just paste over here. And then if you look over here, what it's doing here is telling you what command is going to run and a different argument that command is going to take. And this is just a different chunk. So if I take different component and part of it, this is how I'm going to send it if I were to put this in something like cursor where it asks me to just put the entire command all at once. Okay, so let's see how we will do it if we were to copy this thing over cursor. To open this window, you'll have to go over settings, cursor settings, click on feature, and that things will appear. And once you click on add new server, you can set your transport type. So if I were to use command, then I'll copy and paste this command right here, and that will be similar to what we have over here. And since we passing environmental variable, you can literally just pass an environmental variable similarly to how you will do it in another application by just passing the config like this. Or there might be different ways for you to do that if, for example, your MCP server has the env variable set up in the file itself. So there's different ways that you can do that. But yes, so to access it is over here. You can see that I'm already using Superbase DB right here, and it's actually pretty simple to use. One thing that I need to mention is that MCP server add skills and tools to your agents. So on Cursor, you cannot actually use it with the chat or with the composer. If you are using normal mode, you actually have to use agent mode. You can see I already ran it here, and I'm going to show you another example. So if you use this command right here and submit it, it's going to look for the tools that it's connected to, and it finds this tool, and it's saying that it's going to call the MCP tool and run a query. So this is the query that is going to run because I asked it to list my contact table. I can ask it to run the tool, and once it runs the tool, then it gets the result, then it output what it got. And then if I were to do the same thing without the agents, you'll notice over here that it wouldn't have context of the tool, so it's going to try to do something differently. It's going to look, for example, through my code and try to do something else. You see here, it said, I apologize, but I don't have direct access to your MCP server or its database schema. So to use that on Cursor, you actually have to use the composer and make sure that you're always selecting agent. So you have normal modes. So normal mode doesn't have access to tool, but your agent not only has access to tool, but also can do some reasoning and can also run some commands on your computer, depending on your settings that you have on Cursor. If you guys are familiar with tools such as relevance.ai or gunloop.io, this is kind of similar. You have your workflow and you have those different agents that you're using, and you want to give your agents more tools, more functionality. So what you're doing, you're essentially connecting your agent to different services so they can have different ways to do different actions. So they can be connected to Slack or to a different type of system. So MCP is very similar to that. It just gives your agents access to more tools. This GitHub right here, Model Context Protocol, is pretty much the main documentation about MCP. You can refer to that. You can read the documentation over here on the website. That give you a complete breakdown, different SDK if you're building for different language, for Python, TypeScript, or Java, or Kotlin. And over here, if you scroll down, you're going to see here, it says building MCP with LLM, and it's going to give you access to this file right here. That is a file that you can copy as a documentation. That you also have access to different SDK and example of how to build your own server. This is a really comprehensive documentation to allow you to build MCP. It can be intimidating sometimes, so this is why I wanted to break down the architecture to make sure that it's really easy to follow and understand how it works, so that once you start using it, you're not completely lost. So you can see over here, the inspector is actually a really cool tool. So if you're building your own MCP, you can actually test different transport type, test that your commands are working before you can push it in the wild and make sure that other people can actually use what you actually built. Now, I wanted to show you different resources and different sites that I found that you can use if you're, for example, looking for MCP servers. The number one I want to mention is Cursor Directory. If you guys were using this before for finding different rules, they've just recently added a way to discover new MCP server. So if you click the MCP server here, it's like an MCP store where you can have access to different MCP server that you can install in your IDE. So for example, if you're looking for Superbase, you'll see that they have that over here. You click here, and they give you different instructions in order to set this up. So you have the option for the STDO server or command, like I mentioned, where you can just copy the command right here and paste it into your MCP, or you can use this one, the server option over here. Make sure to read the instruction. I found that right now, the instruction for MCP are not always straightforward. I'm hoping to see some progress in the future where it's going to be a lot easier for people to get familiar with it and install it, and it's going to make it more accessible to more people. But I just want to mention that this is definitely accessible to non-technical people. So even if you're like a vibe coder, you have no idea how to code, I think that this is accessible as long as you understand the architecture that I just showed you and how it works at the high level. I think you should be able to use it as well. There's also this resource called Glamour.ai that gives you access to different MCP server. And the cool thing about Glamour.ai is actually that since it's like a place where you can use different models in a single place, they actually allow you to install those MCP directly into your chat right here on Glamour.ai. So they have a pretty big list of different MCP server. They have about 780 as this last update right here. And you can see that you have all those different options, and you don't have to only use it with Glamour. What you can do is click on one of those MCP server and then click view source code and look at the source code of this MCP server in order to install it on your own machine. And you can just clone the repository, add it to your own machine, and follow the instruction in order to add it inside of your application. Another cool tool that I found is this tool called MCP.so that also has a pretty comprehensive list of MCP server, about 1,141 as this last count. Again, you just have to search for what you're looking for, Superbase, for example, and it's going to return a list of different MCP server that you can use. Have categories, so if you're looking for a specific tool for specific needs, if you want a tool that's related to finance, you can click on finance and find the right MCP server to use. I've also found this other tool called Open Tools, which is also a place where you can find different MCP server to either add to cloud or add to any MCP tools that you're using. You can see that they have some popular ones, some like Puppeteer, Brave Search, GitHub, and so on. And you can also search for different tools that you want to use. So if I wanted to tap Superbase, they don't have this one, but it looks like they have tools like BrowserBase that I can add. And I kind of like the way they explain how to use it. This is probably one of the best documentation that I've seen for installing it, because they just give you a command to copy and paste, and they give you a way to do it on different tools. So I'm hoping to see them adding more MCP client over here so that you have the setup for different tools that you're actually using. And the cool thing about this one is that they actually tell you the open source license if it's MIT, and then you can actually obviously install it and download it if you wanted to. They even provide an open tool CLI that will allow you to actually install it directly on your machine. So if you click over here at open tool CLI, you can install a CLI by using this command and run it in your own machine. And then you can just install any of the MCP server that are available in their MCP server registry. And then finally, the last one, but not the least, this is actually one of the most popular one. If you head over to Model Context Protocol and you scroll over to server, they have a pretty comprehensive list of official MCP server that you can use. If you scroll down, you're going to see that they have all those reference servers that you can use, all those tools, the one for connecting to Slack. There's also a bunch of third-party servers that you can use, and this list is pretty comprehensive. They have a lot of different options like connecting to Stripe, connecting to a Postgres database. So this is the one that I'm currently using right here, this one right here. And you can also use this tool if you wanted to set this up on your own machine. So again, if you wanted to add that to WindSurf, all you have to do is copy this one right here, head over to WindSurf, and you paste this right here, and you should be set up. I might need to do some configuration over here, and just for context, because I know a lot of people have tried to install their own Superbase database. So if you head over to your Superbase database, you notice that when you click on connect, it's going to give you a URL. So this is a URL that you can use to connect to your database. But pay attention to this thing over here, because if you're not using the IPv4 add-on, DNS is not going to be accessible, so you're not going to be able to have your address rendered into IPv4 unless you actually use this add-on. So what you'll need to do if that happens is to use the second link over here called Transaction Pooler, and that's the link that you're going to be using in order to connect your database. But make sure to update the value over here by entering your own password. This is something that you can do by going to your settings, database, and generating a new password if you don't remember it, copying that password, updating this value, and copying this link. And if you were to go on somewhere like WindSurf, you go on feature, scroll over to add new MCP, and you will copy and paste the comment right here. So for example, if you had that comment that we saw just a few minutes ago over here, you will take this comment, so npx minus y and so on. So you will like break it down for cursor, replace the link over here, and make sure to pass your password and copy and paste it over here. You can see this is something that I've already done right here. So I have npx minus y plus the comment. And because of this, I was able to actually use the MCP server with my agent over here. Now, you might wonder, what is this title right here? So this title is just what you want to name your MCP server. So you can name it anything you want. You could have, say, Superbase, SuperDB, but just be descriptive. I just keep it simple and then call it Superbase DB so that it's easy to reference to, and when I'm mentioning it in my chat if I need to my agents. So I believe that the MCP community is going to release more tools. One of the tools that I found that they're currently working on a tool that will allow you to just paste the link of an MCP server and allow the tool itself to install it right away if it needs to. So they're going to improve discovery, making it easier for agents to add tools in the future. This is something they're currently working on, and I'm sure that we're going to see a lot more offering coming in the next couple of weeks. This is just the beginning. If you are someone that is really interested to build your own tool because it's not there, make sure to check the Model Context Protocol documentation and see how you can do that. It's pretty comprehensive. You have the inspector, way to debug, and some example that you can find on the web or on the resources that I've mentioned earlier, like Model Context Protocol and server right here. And you have also access to all the different SDK and additional documentation right there. This is MCP Model Context Protocol for you. I think this is going to be a game changer, and I won't be surprised if more companies start to adopt this new standard, because it's literally like giving amazing capabilities to AI all over the place, and having a single standard make it a lot easier for people to build for it. Think about it like a big app store, and I think that we're going to see more and more MCP store available all over the web. And if I found some, I'll make sure to share some on my Twitter, so make sure to follow me on Twitter. And if you like this kind of video, make sure to hit like and subscribe and check one of this video right here. And I see you guys in the next one.